Lesson 6, contract language is important. This is Design Build Risk Management, Ken Holland, ConstructionRisk LLC. Ignore the contract language at your own peril. The first case, Black & Veatch, was to do an engineering, procure, construction of a power plant, a type of a design build, if you will, and it subcontracted the combustion turbine installation. There was foreign object damage to a number of the compressor blades after the startup. The foreign objects included a cutoff bolt, a welding rod, and a half-moon shaped cut metal plate. These were all found to be in the sort of the tray at the bottom of these turbines, and when the turbines were started up, it apparently sucked these items up into the blades and it damaged them. Black & Veatch paid damages to the project owner and then sued its subcontractor under the indemnity clause for $1.5 million in direct cost to repair the damage and another $2.1 million for delays caused by the damage. Summary judgment was granted for Black & Veatch, finding that the indemnity language was broad enough to require indemnity for any and all damages, including the delay damages, and that the waiver of consequential damages clause in the contract was inapplicable because that clause expressly accepted its applicability to obligations under the indemnity clause. So this is kind of interesting. The parties apparently spent a lot of time negotiating a waiver of consequential damages clause, similar to what you might see in a standard form AIA contract that says that neither party will be liable to the other for consequential damages such as lost profits and other economic type losses. But there was an extra sentence added into the indemnity provision that said that the waiver of consequential damages would not apply to whatever the parties might be required to indemnify the other parties for. The next case is going to deal with liquidated damages. We sometimes hear the argument that if the liquidated damages are huge in comparison to what the actual damages turn out to be, then the court should not enforce that because that would be an undue penalty. And I have counseled my clients not to expect that result, that the whole concept of liquidated damages is that you agree to them up front based on what the reasonable expectations are before the breach as to what damages might be, and they are a useful tool when it's difficult to ascertain what the final actual damages will be. So it's just a tool to guess at what the damages might be without actually at the tail end of the project having to go through and do a whole accounting audit to determine what actuals are. And in fact, they are most enforceable when it is difficult at the time of contract negotiation to determine what the final damages might be as a result of delays and other things to the project. So don't expect a court to throw out an LD clause merely because it results in excess damages. Now, the first case we're going to put up is U.S. versus Dick Corporation, a 2010 case out of the federal court in Florida. And it was a Miller Act claim that was filed against the Dick Corporation by the United States on behalf of a sub on a design build project at the Pensacola Naval Air Station. Dick made a counterclaim against the sub, arguing that it was entitled to withhold payment, and anything that was owed was more than offset by the liquidated damages that the sub owed back to Dick Corporation. The sub argued that the liquidated damages provision was unenforceable because the Navy didn't assess any liquidated damages against Dick Corporation, the contractor, and the sub had not caused any delay that triggered the liquidated damages, and the liquidated damages are an unenforceable penalty because they far exceeded the actual damages sustained. Now, the court concluded that although the liquidated damages were indeed far in excess of the actual damages, it was not possible to ascertain at the time the parties entered into the contract what the actual damages would be. Even if Dick Corporation could have calculated part of its potential actual damages when entering into the contract, the court said there were additional unascertainable factors. The LDs were not deemed to be grossly disproportionate to damages that might reasonably be expected from the delays at the time the contract was negotiated. Next case is one involving KCON Building Systems versus United States. It's a Federal Claims Court decision of 2011. And in this case, the Coast Guard assessed liquidated damages against a design builder that was late in performance and was terminated for default. The contractor filed suit and a summary judgment motion and argued that the dollar amount that was set for the liquidated damages was unreasonable based on what was used on other projects and based on certain components such as government personnel and admin costs that were included in the LDs by the government. The court denied the summary judgment motion of the contractor because the design builder didn't prove that the rate was unreasonable at the time that it was set by the contracting officer based on the information available to the contracting officer at that time. And the government personnel and admin cost can be included in the rate that goes into the liquidated damages. The next case is Mallory and Evans Constructors and Engineers versus Tuskegee University. It's a 2010 Alabama decision, and in this case the contractor forfeits its recovery for extra work that was performed without an approved change order. The design builder in this case had a fixed price contract to upgrade the HVAC system in college dorms. It performed significant extra work due to unforeseen problems with the existing system, and it got approval from the construction manager before doing that. The university refused to pay anything other than the original contract price because a change order was never executed by the purchasing department. And the court granted summary judgment for the university, finding that the contractor did its work without first getting the approved change order. The court also denied recovery for unjust enrichment on a quantum merit theory because the court said, well, wait a minute, you have a contract, a written contract. You only get to use the quantum merit argument when there is no contract. And in this case, the court looked at it and said the fact that the construction manager knew what was going on and approved the changes does not bind the college, because the contract itself was very clear that only one individual at the college in the purchasing department could approve a change order, and the contractor should have followed those procedures. And the reasoning for this is that it is to give the project owner the ability to make decisions contemporaneously as to whether it really wants to do this extra work, the change order work, or whether it needs to stop the work, revise the schedule, revise the plans and specifications, downsize the project, do other things to mitigate the costs. And that by failing to permit the owner the opportunity to review and execute a change order, it prejudices the ability of the owner to make a decision based on all the facts at that time. That is the whole theory. That is why courts are so insistent, for the most part, in enforcing the notice provisions of the contract and provisions such as who can approve a change order. So when you see these contract provisions, it is my advice, take them very seriously. Make sure your project people know who is required to sign a contracting a change order, and make sure that they are getting those approvals at that time. That concludes this lesson. We will next go to lesson 7, comply with the plans and specs even if you wrote them.